This video will discuss the CDN01 or cache dispenser communication error. This error code means that the main board has lost communication with the cache dispenser, the two devices can't communicate, and therefore it will result in an out of service condition or CDN01 error appearing on the screen. You may also notice this symptom if you enter the operator function menu and attempt to add cache or look at the denomination and you're seeing a no con or no communication message in that screen, not allowing you to add cache or change the denomination. The reason for this code can be several different things, mainly dealing with the main board, the cable between the main board and the dispenser, and the cache dispenser itself. The good news is that this error code rarely is the cause of a failed part, rather it's just something that can be quickly fixed. When thinking about the possible reasons for this error code, you should consider what led up to this happening. If the ATM was simply by itself and it was reported by a customer that it entered that condition, or if somebody had been doing service work on the machine, adding a new dispenser or making any changes, it would be important to know that for where to start first. Let's start with the dispenser communication cable. If this error code is being reported and no one had been servicing the machine or working on the machine prior to that, it just went out of service, the most likely reason is that the dispenser communication cable needs to be reseated. You can do this without any tools by just opening up the top of the ATM using the key and reseating the cable, which is located in this bottom corner of the main board. To make this easier to view, I'm going to go ahead and hinge the front of the machine forward and take off the cover so that you can see the cable. I'm going to remove these screws on either side of the sliding tray. With the cover removed and the bezel hinged forward, you can see the CDU communication cable, which is this black cable and it's labeled JP5. It's close in the closest connector to this bottom left edge of the main board when you're looking at it from the back. Again, it's not necessary to remove the cover and hinge the machine forward. Once you know where the cable is, you can do this without having to remove anything. However, this is just to make it easier to view. What you want to do, even though this cable may look like it's perfectly installed and everything's fine, you want to unclip this. It's similar to a telephone connector. Unplug it from the socket and then push it back all the way into the socket until you hear it click. Now go ahead and reboot the ATM and see if it makes the problem clear. Just for reference, here you can see the bezel upright and the cover on the main board, and all you need to do is reach up to this cable here and press it, unplug the JP5 cable, and then push it back into its socket. Remember, although we're demonstrating this on an Onyx model ATM, the same procedure will apply to all Genmega and Hantel ATMs. If reseating the JP5 connection did not solve the problem after you rebooted the machine, or if the problem resulted after somebody was servicing the dispenser or had just installed a new dispenser, then we're going to want to open up the vault and look at the dispenser next. With the vault door open, undo the screws that hold the sliding tray in place and slide out the dispenser. Next, we're going to want to make sure that the cables are properly attached to the dispenser. This is the dispenser data cable. It should be screwed in place and tight. And this is the dispenser power cable, and it should be clipped in place. You should be seeing some LEDs on this control board if the dispenser is getting power. Next, we're going to want to look at the position of the dip switches on the side of the dispenser. When looking at the dispenser control board, you want to locate the 4-position switch, shown here. This is an SCDU dispenser. However, all Genmega dispenser control boards will have a 4-position switch, which is used to set the communication or the dispenser method. In this case, we see that switch number 1 and 2 are up and switch number 3 and 4 are down, which indicates that the dispenser is in test mode. Sometimes this can happen after receiving a dispenser back from refurbishment or from repair, if the technician left the dispenser in test mode, or if you've purchased a new dispenser and it was tested before shipping, somebody forgot to put the dispenser in normal mode. Normal mode for this dispenser is going to be switch number 1 up and 2, 3, and 4 down, like this. If the switches were not in the correct position, put the switches in the position that you see here, switch number 1 up, 2, 3, and 4 down, and then power off the machine, wait a moment, and then power it back on. Additionally, if someone has enabled the CDU binding function or the CDU security function, you may see the switches in this position, 1 up, 2 and 3 down, and number 4 up. That indicates that someone had enabled the binding and enabled CDU security. In order to solve the communication error that we're getting, we need to put the dispenser back in normal mode, which is return switch number 1 to its normal position. And now the dispenser is in normal mode, and reboot the machine and power it back on to see if it's corrected the problem. If it does correct the problem, then you're going to need to go through the CDU binding process again to return the CDU security mode back to secure. In the unlikely event that the switches or reseating the cable up top did not solve the problem, we're going to want, before replacing any parts, we're going to want to go and look for any damage to the dispenser cable. This dispenser cable, this gray cable, follow it down through the wiring harness, especially anywhere you might see a zip tie or a cable tie that's holding these cables in place, and look for any damage. Something as simple as a small cut from one of these rails. Follow it up through the vault and make sure that one of the cables didn't get stuck inside the sliding rail here. If there's any damage to the cable, we're going to need to replace it. So hopefully reseating the JP5 cable on the back of the main board, or checking the switches on the control board, making sure that switch number 1 is up, 2, 3, and 4 are down, and checking the dispenser cable, and then rebooting the machine, hopefully that's resolved your CDN01 problem and the machine's back in service. If it did not, then you may need to replace a part. There isn't a common part that would cause this. It really would help if you could try a new main board or a new dispenser board. My guess would be more likely the dispenser board as the cause than the main board. But usually, in most cases, when talking with customers, we fix this problem by reseating the cable or checking the switches and then rebooting. I hope this helps.